Hello there Year 2, it's Mr. Mayor and I'm going to think about your vocabulary focus words with you this week. Our focus words for the week are meanwhile, wilted, myth, gazed, searched, disappeared, wept, despair, hopeless, and stolen. Do you recognise any of these words? Have you ever heard any of these words used before? This would be a good time to pause the video and have a chat with your adult about each of these words and see if you can think of any definitions or if you can use them in a sentence. When you're ready, press play and we'll look at the definitions together. Were you able to think of any definitions for those words? Well done if you were. Don't worry if not, because we'll look at them now. Meanwhile, during that time. Wilted. A plant wilts when it needs water. It bends over and becomes weak and can die. Myth. A traditional story, typically involving supernatural people or events. Gazed. Looked at something for a long time. Searched, when you looked for something lost. Disappeared, when something is no longer there, you can't see it anymore. Wept, someone who was very upset and cried for a long time. Despair, when you feel everything has gone wrong and it won't get better. Hopeless, when you feel very unhappy and it seems like things can't get any better, there is no hope. And stolen, when something is taken without permission. Well done if you were able to think of some of those definitions, or if you were able to use some of these words in sentences. We're going to think about these words this week by looking at a Greek myth. The myth that we are thinking about involves Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Zeus, the king of the gods, had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Each had an important job. One of his sisters, Demeter, was in charge of the harvest. If Demeter did not do her job, the crops could die and everyone would starve. It was important to keep Demeter happy. Demeter had a daughter, Persephone, and she really loved her. They played together in the fields almost every day. All the crops grew well and the flowers grew everywhere. Pluto, the king of the underworld, decided he loved Persephone and he kidnapped her and took her back to the underworld. Meanwhile, up on Earth, Demeter came looking for her daughter at the end of the day. "Persephone, darling, time to go home." But there was no answer. Demeter called out and asked everyone she met, but it was hopeless. Persephone had simply disappeared. All Demeter's work was forgotten as she searched high and low for the child. Nothing mattered but to find Persephone. So the flowers wilted, the crops stopped growing, and as Demeter wept, the trees wept with her, shedding their leaves in brown and yellow tears. After searching the world over, Demeter returned to Sicily and sat down in despair beside a river. As she gazed at the water, what should come spinning by on the current but a little cord of flowers? "Persephone is in the underworld," whispered the water. "I saw her. Pluto has stolen her away to be his queen." Were you able to hear any of our focus words in that story? That was only part of that Greek myth. Can you research the myth and find out how the story ends? Perhaps you could pause the video now and talk to your adult about the story that you just heard. You might want to replay parts of it and see if you can find each of the focus words for this week. Can you use the focus words in your own sentences? Perhaps you want to continue the story of Persephone and Demeter, or you might want to write a completely new story of your own. Whatever you do, Your class teacher would love to hear about it on Class Dojo. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.